Hello, friends. I'm Tom Ballard, joined by Pastor Kristen Burkhart. We're the two pastors at Fountain City United Methodist Church. It has been a couple of weeks since we've given an update on where we are in terms of the disposition of the church as far as reopening and that sort of thing. We are continuing to monitor the numbers very carefully, and little by little, inch by inch, those numbers are dropping ever so slightly almost every day. So we do hope to be back in person very soon. In the meantime, there have been some things that have reopened on an outdoor sort of basis for a lot of churches that you may be hearing about. We really don't have the space here to try to do outdoor worship, plus it would take just an incredible amount of work to make that happen. So we're trying to really put our energy into a good online presence, and we are continuing to get better at that little by little. We have a ways to go. Some of the equipment that we have ordered has been on back order for weeks, well actually months now, and we know that that's going to be a bit of an expense, and certainly if you'd like to make a contribution toward that, we would gladly receive that, but we hope that you would make that over and above your regular offering. So thank you for the ways that you are supporting us financially. We could not really do what we are doing without that support. We also know that as we watch the numbers that schools are beginning to reopen. The public school system here in Knox County will be reopening next week. And I know that we are holding our collective breaths to see what that is going to do. And hopefully there will not be a spike that will cause us to have to shift yet again. One of the good pieces of school reopening is that our preschool has gotten approval to reopen within certain protocols, certain health and safety protocols. And so our preschool staff is working very hard to get our preschool back up and going. And right now, the planned opening first day of our preschool will be on the Tuesday following Labor Day. That will be on September the 8th. So be prayerful for our schools, for students, our teachers, our faculty, for administration, for custodians and bus drivers, and there's just so many. We could go down the list to be very prayerful for these folks as they really are trying to serve our community and making sure that our children are kept safe while at the same time getting a quality education. And speaking of education, Pastor Kristen is going to speak now a little bit to some continuing opportunities here as far as discipleship, exciting things that are coming this fall. So Kristen?
Well, we have tried to adjust to the new times of things that are going on, and we have delayed our adult discipleship just a little to make sure everything was ready and together with electronics and our teachers. And so we are happy to say we are offering 7 different classes on Wednesday night. We'll be offering those from 6:30 to 7:30, and we'll go for about 6 weeks. We need to wrap up before Thanksgiving so that we can start an Advent series after that. And one of the things we are making sure we do is it's going to be online. And so we offered more classes to hope that those classes may be smaller in number in various ways so that we can have some holy conversation through Zoom. But all of our teachers and our leaders are getting ready and prepared for that. And that'll be in the September newsletter and, of course, on our website and various other electronic ways of publicizing things. But please stay tuned for that. that. Please be in prayer for that. And please go ahead and mark your calendar for the Wednesday night, 6:30 to 7:30, all of October and 2 or 3 weeks into November, so that we can make sure we get to be together. I hope if you have done a previous study, you will definitely sign up. I hope if you haven't, this is a good way to try. And so please join us as you're able to do so. We are thankful that the children and youth have started their fall programming, and that seems to be rolling well. And so we're ready to start our discipleship programming as we go along. The other thing too, and you may be used to this, I hope we don't get too used to it, but we will be having Holy Communion online the first Sunday in September. And Pastor Tom and I will seek to lead you through that as part of our worship time. But we want to go ahead and mention that to you so you can go ahead and add the bread and the juice to your grocery list, or to make sure you already have that stored and ready to go as we seek to come together around the table. And as God is so great and so good that he can be around all those tables as we worship together and have Holy Communion. So those are my two things. I hope you'll make note of those, and we're just keeping trugging along here. And there are a lot of good things going on in the midst of difficult times.
Thank you, Pastor Kristen. And speaking of upcoming events, probably the thing that's coming up immediately is this coming Sunday is the fourth Sunday of the month. And we are highlighting our Faith Promise ministries. The two that we are highlighting for August are the Wesley Foundation at UT Knoxville and the Fountain City Ministry Center. I want you to know, because of your faithfulness, that we have been able to keep up with our obligations to our 20 thereabouts ministry partners that we have historically had a relationship with. And so we hope that you will continue that faithfulness. We'll not have envelopes, special envelopes like we normally do when we are in person in worship, but you can certainly designate your check, and we'll make sure that those funds go toward our Faith Promise ministry. And as we now close out this time of our update, if you have been able to keep up with our worship, you'll know that we have been looking at the book of Genesis and those wonderful, both ancient and very contemporary stories out of the first book of the Bible. And I was particularly moved this morning as I got to thinking yet again about where we are in that series of stories. Last week, we talked about how Joseph was reconciled with his brothers and how he invited their father Jacob and all of the brothers to move toward Egypt, because that's where the food was, that's where the grain was. And the reason I was so moved by that is because you will remember that the writer of Genesis tells us that there was drought that led to a famine going on. 7 years of drought and famine. And I'd like to compare that to really where we are in this pandemic. We're now knocking on the door of 6 months of being in this pandemic. And I don't know about you, but for me, it seems like we're in sort of a time warp. If somebody told me it had been going on for 7 years, I would say, yeah, it seems that it's been that long. It has only been about 6 months. And yet, we know that our world, our individual lives have been turned topsy-turvy. The word that I think is good news for us this day is that God is still with us, and we might remember that before the 7 years of drought and famine came to the land of Egypt and to the known world at that time, there were 7 years of abundance. And Joseph was put in a particular place to ration out what had been stored up during those years of abundance. I'm wondering how we might be able to draw upon what we have accumulated in a spiritual sense that has brought us to this point, that we are experiencing a bit of drought and maybe famine, and yet we know that we're not really going hungry because we have experienced a God of abundance. And we can draw upon that God of abundance regardless of what we face. So, brothers and sisters, I simply want us to draw upon that. We have all kinds of assets that we can draw upon that bring us to this point. We have the assets of relationships with one another. We have the asset of technology, of being able to stay in touch with one another. We have the asset of our faith and the memory that the God who has seen all of our ancestors through is the very same God who is seeing us through in this moment. And I trust that we will draw upon that and know that that will be just enough every day to see us through right now. May the peace and the love and the joy of Christ be with you. And we hope that we will continue to stay in touch virtually and online and all of those ways that are made available to us until we're able to see each other actually in person. Stay safe, stay healthy, and know that the God of the past and the God of our future is the God of now. Hope to see you next time, whatever that looks like, whenever that is. Take care.